All right, let's dive into this really fascinating evolution happening in AI right now. We're going to look at how we're making these models not just smarter, but way faster and more efficient by giving them something that honestly looks a lot like memory.
So, have you ever had that feeling? You're talking to a super powerful large language model, an LLM, and it feels like you're chatting with a genius. But then you ask it about something that happened, yesterday, and nothing. It has no idea. Why is that? Well, this points to a really big, fundamental limitation in even our most advanced AI today.
Think of it this way. An LLM is like a brilliant student who has read an entire library, but the moment their training ended, that library was sealed shut. Forever. They can't get new information, they can't access your private company docs, or anything that happened after their training cutoff date. It creates this huge blind spot.
Okay, so to solve this, developers came up with this really clever technique. Constantly retraining these giant models is just crazy expensive and totally impractical. So instead, they decided to just give the AI some notes it could look at right before it has to answer a question.
And this technique is called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. The name actually tells you everything you need to know. First, it retrieves fresh info from an outside source. Then it augments your prompt, your question, with that new info. And finally, it generates a response based on your question and that brand new context. Simple, right?
What's really cool about this diagram is how it just maps the whole thing out for you. Your question comes in, right? It's used to search a database for stuff that's relevant, and then those documents are just bundled up with your query and boom, sent to the LLM. It's a really powerful, kind of simple way to ground the AI in facts that are actually up to date.
But, RAG has a bit of an efficiency problem. Imagine you have an assistant, and every single time you ask them about the company's vacation policy, they have to run to the file cabinet, pull out the policy document, and reread the exact same page. It works, yeah, but it's super redundant and slow, especially for questions that get asked all the time.
So what's the next step in this evolution? If the problem is our assistant keeps rereading the same page over and over again, the obvious solution is to give them a better memory, right? So they can just recall the information they used all the time. And that solution, that's called Cache-Augmented Generation, or CAG. Just think of this as giving our AI assistant a short-term memory, like a cache. Information that's stable, that's used a lot, gets stored right there in the model's memory. So no more running back to the database every single time. Okay, but this is where it gets really, really powerful. The best approach isn't picking RAG or CAG. It's using them together. You get that up-to-the-minute fresh knowledge from RAG, but you combine it with the lightning-fast recall of CAG.
And this diagram just illustrates the difference perfectly. On the left, you've got your standard RAG, where every little piece of data has to go through that whole retrieval process. But look at the right. With RAG plus CAG, you can see that some of that info, the cache stuff, now takes a direct shortcut right into the LLM's memory. It's so much smarter.
So the key to making this whole thing work is being selective about what you cache. You basically divide your knowledge into hot data and cold data. The cold data, things that almost never change like company policies or historical facts, that gets cached. But the hot data, the dynamic stuff, like today's news or live customer chats, that still gets fetched using RAG. Best of both worlds.
So, the big takeaway here, this hybrid system is a massive win. We're talking faster speeds and lower costs, which means customer service bots can answer you instantly without that annoying lag. It also makes the AI's answers way more reliable and consistent. It's a huge step toward giving AI a truly functional memory.
And it's so important to get this. These techniques aren't just, little isolated tricks. They are all part of a much larger journey. RAG was a brilliant fix for that frozen knowledge problem, but the real destination, the end game, has always been to create AI that can learn, remember, and actually build on its experiences.
So this leaves us with this really, really exciting question for the future. We've given AI access to current events with RAG, and now we've given it an efficient memory with CAG. So what happens next? What happens when these systems don't just answer our questions, but start to truly learn and adapt from every single interaction they have? That, right there, is the next frontier we're all heading towards.